Hello, welcome back to my farmhouse kitchen. It's a Saturday afternoon and I have my nieces here, Lexi and Shelby, and they've come up to spend the weekend with me because they want to learn how to make homemade white bread. So that's what we're going to show you how we're going to do today. So I have a book here. It is just country baking and one of my many cookbooks, and there is a basic white bread recipe in here that we're going to start off. So I have my bowl ready for my KitchenAid mixer, and we are going to put 2 cups of flour into this bowl. So I have some flour here, and really what this recipe consists of is flour, milk, oil, yeast, salt, and 2 tablespoons of sugar. So it's just a basic white bread recipe, really simple. I've made this bread before, and it really slices nice after it's cool, and it's very flavorful and makes great homemade toast. So, she's being approximate. We're going to have, it's close, you know, I don't get anything exact. 2 cups of flour, it's perfect. So we need 2 cups of flour, and then our yeast, and it calls for 2 packages of dry yeast, but I am a King Arthur fan, and I have this thing of King Arthur yeast that I keep in my refrigerator, and I have this handy measuring spoon that measures it for you. The spoon measures 1 package of yeast, so I'm going to let you put 2 spoonfuls of yeast into our flour, and then we'll just set this aside. Because next we're going to need to heat up 1 cup of milk, 1 cup of water, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 tablespoons of oil, and 2 teaspoons of salt. And then we're going to put that warm mixture, when we heat it up to 110 degrees, we're going to mix it right in this bowl, and I'm going to put it right on my mixer, and we're going to mix it, and it's pretty easy. It's going to net it for me, and then we'll set it to rest for 20 minutes. So we'll get started. Okay, so first I have to light my old farmhouse stove. I love this stove because it's very fitting for the farmhouse. So my front burner, I'm going to turn the gas on. This is going to have automatic lights. Whew, I got a little too gassy, but we got it on. And I have a little cast iron skillet. We're just going to heat up a cup of milk and 1 cup of water. So Lexi's got my cup of milk she's going to put in there. Okay, perfect. And then you can take that same measuring cup and just get measuring 1 cup of water. And we have 2 tablespoons of sugar. You can put the measuring cup right in the sink. And we're going to need 2 tablespoons of oil. I'll let you measure this over the stove. Oops, careful. Watch out for Shelby. She's the helping hand. We've all got our little... Yes, 2 tablespoons. We've all got our little aprons on. I have a homemade apron on, and so does Lexi, and Shelby is wearing a vintage apron. I made these aprons, me and Lexi's. This is my very first one. It's one of my favorites. Let's see, now, so we got the sugar, the oil, the salt. So we're going to heat this up to 110 degrees, which it won't be on here very long. And then we are going to pour it into the flour bowl, and I'm going to put on my dough mixer. It's a hook, and we are going to mix this up until it makes a nice fine dough. Okay, so I have my milk and water and oil, sugar and salt mixture heated up to about 110 degrees. So I'm going to pour it into a measuring cup so it's easier to pour into my mixing cup. And you don't want this to be too hot, just hot enough that you can stick your finger in there and know that it's hot, because it'll cool down rather quickly to get it in there. But you don't want your milk scalding because you got your yeast in here and it's mixed in with the flour. So I've got 2 cups of flour in here and my 2 packages of yeast, and I'm going to put it on the KitchenAid mixer. And I have a dough hook that we're going to put on here, and this is going to do my mixing. So after I pour this in here, we're going to need to put more flour in this as well. So Lexi, you might want to be able to help me put more flour in here as we get ready to add it. But right now I'm just going to add the wet mixture in with the dry. And I'm going to slowly pour it in here. And this is just to get it mixed up real good. If you're interested in this basic bread recipe, I can go over the ingredients, measurements again so that you can write them down or whatever, but it's just really a basic bread recipe. Very simple. This one's easy to learn if you're a new baker, like the girls are. Turn it up just a little bit. Get it mixing. Oh, we got the flour ready? Okay. Push this down a little bit because some of my flour is on the sides, and I want to make sure all the dry gets wet and mixed before I add more flour in there. Okay. So when we add more flour to this and it gets mixed, it'll mix up into a ball and it'll all stick together. And the thing of this recipe, with the heat and the warm milk and the water, it makes it rise really fast. So if you can kind of see in my bowl, it looks kind of soupy and wet. So I'm just going to get this mixed up so all the flour gets in there, and then I'm going to add some more. So the recipe calls anywhere from 5.5 to 6 cups of flour, but I never add all the flour that it says. I added little flour gradually because you'll be able to tell when it comes together and starts pulling together into a ball that you have enough flour. You don't want to overload it with flour. So I'm going to come over here and we're going to put some more flour in here. And really, since my flour is in this pourer, I'm just going to kind of eyeball it and pour some in here. And it'll come together. My lid on here isn't the greatest. We have to just take that whole thing right off. It doesn't get in the way. And I can put a little flour in here at a time. Turn it up just a bit so we can, I don't want to wing flour all over, so I don't want to get this going too fast. But I kind of want to gradually add flour. There's one of them small measuring scoopers right there. That might be easier to put it in, or I could use a spoon. Yeah, one of those will work. Like a half a cup. Thank you. Okay, so now we'll just make this a little easier. Put some flour in here, and just until it comes together and it looks like a nice soft dough is what we're looking for. And I apologize, I don't have good lighting in this kitchen yet. The house is still under construction, but we make the best of what we have, so eventually I'm going to have a light fixture over here so I can see a little better, but hopefully you can see how we've got it. The dough is now starting to pull together. And I'll slow this down a little bit because now it's coming into like a ball. I mean, it's just what we want, and I don't want to get too much flour in there, but I'm going to just shake a little bit more. You don't want it too sticky, but you don't want too much flour in there. You just want it to come together, and this will net it up nicely. And then after I get it all of the flour I feel like is mixed in, we're going to put it on my warm old-fashioned cook stove over there because it's nice and warm on top. And I will put a towel over this and we'll let it sit for 20 minutes and it should rise up. Now, I've got a pretty good dough, and you can kind of see it's sticking to my dough hook, and touching it, it's still kind of sticky, so I need a little bit more flour in there to mix in. I don't want it too sticky, but I don't want it too much flour, so you're going to have to kind of touch it to feel it out. So I put a little more flour in there and it should all come back together. Let's see. It's really coming together now. So I think what I can do is get this ready to rise. So I'm going to sprinkle it and mix it with my hand, and I'll get it into a ball and I'll get it in a warm place and we'll let it rise. Okay, so I have a nice bowl here. I'm going to put my bread in this to rise, and I have a nice warm spot in this heat well on my stove. It stays warm all the time, so this is a perfect place to put a bowl and get it warm. So when I'm going to take my bowl, I'm going to take some cooking spray, and I'm going to spray it lightly in my bowl so my bread dough doesn't stick to my bowl. So if you can see my dough, I've got it all nice in my bowl here, and it's all come together, and I've lightly floured it, and I kind of pulled it together with my hand, making sure everything was all pulled together. So I got a nice little wad of dough, and I'm going to stick this down in my bowl, and I'm going to put this on a warm spot, and I have a towel. This is my bread towel. Don't mind that they're stained. They're very clean. I put a nice light towel over top of my bowl, and we'll let this rise for 20 minutes to a half an hour until it's doubled in size. Okay, so we're back, and it's been a little longer than 20 minutes because we got to have some Thanksgiving leftovers because I had 2 hungry baby birdies here that were ready to eat. So we've all eaten, we've cleaned up. My bread is rising over my bowl, so I want to get this out. I'm going to net it all down and divide it and put it into 2 baking dishes. And in the meantime, as we were letting my dough rise, Lexi made her own dough. So we have 2 more loaves of bread that's going to be coming out too. So I wanted her to practice and make sure she could do this on her own at home. So I probably should have a little flour. You want to grab me some flour out of the freezer?
Yeah,
I keep my flour in the freezer to keep it fresh. Just a good way. So I need a little bit of just lift that off. I'm gonna sprinkle a little flour around my board and on my dough so it doesn't stick to my hands or my board. So we got it all netted down. And I have one of these handy dandy bench knives. This recipe says it'll make 1 loaf, but I tried the 1 loaf and it rose up over the pan and it didn't get all the way done, and so I thought, you know, the recipe just wasn't that accurate for me, so I divide the dough down into 2 and it makes 2 nice loaves. So I just take my bench knife and look for about to make it even. Cut my dough in half and get them rolled up into loaves. Just I want to make sure my dough is kind of together. And once I get this into the pans, we're going to let it rise again. And once it rises up high enough into the loaf pan, it'll be ready for the oven. And I've got my oven preheated right now. And Lexi's has got her dough on the stove there, and it's rising, and it's already reaching the top of the towel. So I will let this rise for another 20 minutes or so, and I will get it in the oven, and I'll get back to you when we pull it out, okay? Okay, we just wanted to show you what our bread looks like after we've got it rised up in the pan. It's all ready for the oven. And while I've got you here, I'm going to give you a quick peek at Lexi's bread that she made all on her own. Hers is rising right now, and hers will be ready for the oven probably shortly after mine is baked. So I'm going to get my 2 loaves into my old-fashioned oven. And she's heated to about 375 degrees, which is probably good. Now, I'm wondering if I have to lower this rack just 1 hot water. I think it's up too high, so bear with me. This thing is old, but she's awesome. So I'm just going to lower my rack a little bit. So my bread's not too high up. My temperature gauge back on there. Alright, so now we got them at the right height. And I'm going to carefully put these in, and when they're done, they will be golden brown, and if you tap on it, it should sound hollow. So I will get back to you when these babies are done.
And this baby is done.
Okay, guess what? It smells so good in my kitchen. And I believe the bread is done. It's pretty golden, so we're going to pull it out, and I will give you a first-hand view of how simple, beautiful, and hopefully tasteful what this is going to be like. Got a nice little rack set up, and you can see they're just beautiful. I tapped on them earlier just to make sure that they were they sounded done, and they have that hollow sound when you tap on them. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get a stick of butter, and I'm going to melt it over the top, makes it nice and soft, and I'll pop them out of these spread pans. But for now, we're going to get Lexi's bread that she made into the oven, because hers are all beautifully rose up. Which I'll let you do the honors. You can stick them in the oven. Let me push your thing in, and do that out just a little bit so you don't get burnt. Careful, it's hot. Put that one aside, and you can put the two little ones right in beside it. So this is her bread that she made, and she's going to take it home to her family. But she did this all by herself. She netted it and mixed it and the whole 9 yards. So very simple recipe. And if you would like to know this recipe, just get with me, and I will give you the ingredients. So we're going to take these out. I have a stick of butter here. Knife. I'm just very basic. Take a piece of butter, and I like to melt it over the top. This makes a nice soft crust. So I just get a little butter on there. And then these should pop right out of the pans. Some buttery. To the side. And as you can see, they glide right out. Nice and golden on the bottom. All right, 2 gorgeous loaves of bread. Hope you enjoyed.